Somehow we're just a couple weeks away from the end of 2023, and this year for Magic the Gathering has brought us a ton of new products. Even a lot, if you ask some people. But in this, the year of our Lord 2023, I want to go back and take a look at the Magic products released to see maybe what hit, what missed, and, what might have been somewhere in the middle. So let's do a bit of a retrospective on 2023 in Magic the Gathering. Alright, starting us off, going back a million years to January of this year, we've got Dominaria Remastered. Now, this set was one that people were really excited about, and myself included, because we knew we were going to have a lot of really good reprints, but unfortunately, they also filled this set with a lot of crap, to put it lightly, and the problem with that is that the value has not held up super well. The set was kind of carried at the onset by huge reprints like Force of Will, Vampiric Tutor, and even Sylvan Library, but after that, the value kind of started to drop off, and that's sort of where we encountered some problems. The lands they reprinted didn't really hold too much value. The boxes were priced at a premium set, starting at around $180, give or take, for a box when the sets first started to kind of hit the market. And now they've fallen, if you look at the graph, they've fallen a pretty sizable percent, down about 42% in just a year at about $103 per box. People are trying to get rid of these boxes pretty much anywhere and everywhere they can for the draft boxes, and collector booster boxes have not fared much better, but I use the other boxes here just for the purpose of video. I have to say, Dominaria Remastered is going to kind of be one of those things that might set an unfortunate precedent moving forward for remastered sets. While Time Spiral Remastered was a really cool set that was released sort of during the middle of the pandemic and had a limited quantity, so it carries a lot more value. If Dominaria Remastered is the goalpost, then Ravnica Remastered, which is coming out next January, almost pushes the goalpost back because it is actively worse, and they're going to be relying solely on serialized stuff to make value. So while the year started off with a set that did include some pretty good reprints, it definitely was not the greatest set ever, and I don't know how fondly we'll look at it over time. Of course, that could change if the stock starts to diminish and the reprints don't get, double dipped again. If Vampiric Tutor doesn't come back out again, Force of Will doesn't come back out again, then maybe this will move up over time. But as of now, definitely not the hottest set to start off the year, and unfortunately sets a weird precedent for remastered sets going forward unless something changes. Admittedly, things got a little better with our February set and the first core set of the year, Fxia All Will Be One. This set was super hyped from the initial teasers, talking about it, obviously, the Phyrexian invasion, which was building to Magic's big storyline resolution of the ongoing story arc at that point, and there were a lot of reasons to be optimistic about this set, including a new version of Elesh Norn. Now, this set actually did relatively well in terms of the impact it had on the standard metagame as well as on the players and their reception to it. It impacted pretty much all formats with a lot of big hitter cards. The biggest value hits out of it, cards like Shouldered the Apocalypse and Elesh Norn in the Junji Ito artwork that was super popular, and you could get all kinds of different things in that step and complete foiling. I'm pretty sure Elesh Norn had like 12 different art styles in the set too, but the set sold pretty well and actually didn't do too bad for itself in terms of just being a set people actually wanted to go after. It has one of the lowest percentage drop rates, starting out at around $220 a box and settling now about $177 a box, which is only a 19.5% drop. Not terrible looking at almost a year, especially compared to Dominaria Remastered and how that's held up, but time will tell whether or not this set will continue to thrive going, as it is, out of print eventually, and as there's no, way to access it anymore. I do think that some of the cards in there, especially being good for formats, like Commander, with the Elesh Norns, with the different chase variants, will do wonders for the collector boxes. The draft and set boxes really haven't seen any type of significant increase and are pretty darn close to what they came out at. But there's not really enough movement on there to make it worthwhile. And considering that this set is really only worth cracking if you're going after the collector packs for the big hitter cards, I thought that would be the best statistic to use. Phyrexia All Will Be One definitely started the year off pretty strong with some new cards, really kind of shaking up some of the metagames across multiple formats and giving collectors a little something to go after. So it definitely rebounded a little from Dominaria Remastered's lackluster landing in the Magic world. Of course, after that came perhaps the best set of the year to this point, March of the Machine. This was set up very much to be like an Avengers Endgame style multiversal war across some of Magic's most famous planes and sets, and it was really, really hype both from a collecting perspective, following the story perspective, and just really like getting into the spirit of Magic the Gathering a little bit. And I think it was very popular with fans for that reason. It introduced reprint styles of certain showcase treatments from across multiple sets. We saw the Kaladesh Masterpiece showcase style get a somewhat sort of, not quite exactly the same, but close sort of, reprint style for Ragavan, Nimble Pilferer, among others. And this set also brought us serialized cards, numbered cards, versions of different things. Everything that was a multiversal legend reprint had its own numbered version, and then the new Praetors, the big bads of the story, also got their own serialized versions with exclusive artworks. So there was a lot of hype from a lower level to a very high level for this set, and boxes were cracked open like crazy. But that does not mean they held the value. In fact, while this set was one of the first to bring serialized out in this year with Magic the Gathering, it has definitely taken a bit of a dive from the beginning of the year at about 26.67% down on collector boxes, starting out around 240 and dropping to about 175. The serialized cards were definitely hot ticket chase items, and some of them are still, but with more serialized cards coming out throughout the year, they kind of lost a bit of their luster, and people started putting their money elsewhere, or had already gotten what they wanted from the set and were just kind of like ready to put their money into other products, especially because the set that came out after this was only a few weeks later, so they didn't exactly do anyone any favors to give them a chance to really heavily invest into the set without being ready for the next one if they didn't want to miss out. March of the Machine, the aftermath, certainly did not fill the shoes that its predecessor had set forward. When this set was announced, we learned it would be a mini set, which had really never been done before in Magic, and would consist of epilogue boosters and collector boosters. The epilogue boosters would be 5-card packs that would have a very different assortment of rarities, and there would be no commons at all in the set. It was basically just uncommons, rares, and mythics. People were a little bit intrigued, but also confused because this set released only 3 weeks after people had gotten March of the Machine, and trying to get people to spend that kind of money on a product means you really need to deliver with the hits inside, and this set simply did not do that. While the biggest hits in the set are cards like Nissa, Resurgent Animist, and Calyx Guided by Fate, even those didn't break, $20, $30 max for their normal versions, with the Halo foil variants getting a little bit of a premium for a while, but this set as a whole was a massive disappointment. If you take a look at the graph, it is by far the biggest drop we see against any Magic set this year, and the drop for this has actually been close to around 60%, with a huge dive and people just selling off the epilogue boosters boxes, for a loss, just to not have them on shelves anymore, just to basically have them well out of the way. And that to me should say all you need to see about why this set was a total flop. But even the collector booster boxes, which were normal-ish price for collector boosters, only had 6 cards per pack instead of 12. So overall, this product was just an absolute swing and a miss by Wizards. And I really hope that we don't get more epilogue boosters like this, because it is disappointing to say the least when, there's some neat cards put behind them, but it's just not a product worth putting your money to. And of course, we know our local game stores got hosed by this product as well, so it was just pretty rough all around. Now, perhaps the most noteworthy set of the year was Lord of the Rings Tales of Middle-earth. This Universes Beyond straight-to-modern set came out in June and had a crazy amount of hype specifically behind its collector boosters because of the serialized one-of-one One Ring card. This Willy Wonka-style golden ticket treasure hunt culminated with someone pulling the card and selling it to Post Malone for over $2 million, which was a crazy story to watch unfold. But after the one-of-one ring had been hit, the value and interest in these sealed products dropped immensely. They are still worth a good bit, but the prices and the amount of them flying off the shelves essentially came to a stalemate, because while there are still some good hits in the set like the One Ring and even the Ancient Tomb and other, Realms and Relics box toppers, that one-of-one ring no longer being an option has really hurt the value of the set as a whole, with collector boxes dropping over 20% from when they were released to now. And of course, there was a holiday edition of the set as well, which we'll get to a little bit later in the video, that probably didn't do this any favors. But time will tell whether or not this set holds its value, because I do think there are still things like the serialized soul rings that are in the set that are going to command some value, and people will likely look at this as a fondly remembered sealed product to hold on to for years to come. Commander Masters was another set that received a lot of hype. Well, for many years now, Wizards has been releasing Masters-style sets that have a lot of reprints at a bit of a premium upcharge. This one promised to be the first that was focused around the Commander format, and ultimately ended up being what Commander Legends 2 should have been. We don't need to revisit that completely terrible set at this time, but Commander Masters was really hyped for a lot of reasons. For one, it promised to reprint Jeweled Lotus, which is one of the best cards in the format, and had been just extremely expensive with no signs of coming down in price. It also had cards like Fierce Guardianship and the rest of the Commander free cast cycle, amongst a lot of other really good reprints. But there were two problems with the set. One of them was the fact that in addition to good reprints, it had a lot of filler crap. There was a lot of cards reprinted in that set that had either been already reprinted in the past year or were worth less than $1 or $2. And if you guys are curious about Commander Masters and its full breakdown, I did a series of videos on the channel earlier this summer that actually ended up getting me to partner, which was great. And so we did a full in-depth analysis on pretty much anything you could want to look at with Commander Masters. But looking at it now about 4 months after release, it has dropped about 25% for draft boxes. They were around $308 before the set officially released, which is crazy, and set boosters were, probably about $20, $25 higher than that, but draft boxes now are going for around $230, which would have been a pretty reasonable price point for the set if that's what it had come out as, but of course it did not, so we can't really give it credit for something that it didn't do. Commander Masters does have a lot of good singles, but because of the fact that the set was overpriced and wasn't exactly as worth it to rip open as perhaps some other sets, it's actually seen the singles inside start to go up, which means the purpose of the reprint wasn't really as helpful as we'd hoped it would be. So hopefully those of you who were terrified that your cards were going to lose value can calm down a little bit, because for the most part, we've seen a lot of things start to rebound already. Next up, we had Wilds of Eldraine, and this set was actually pretty hype when it was first announced. Throne of Eldraine is arguably one of Magic's best core sets, probably in the past decade. It was both meta-defining, had really cool, lore behind it, and just a lot of fun cards that have had an impact across multiple formats. So Wilds of Eldraine was a natural sort of follow-up to that had people pretty excited. Unfortunately, though, the set did not exactly come anywhere near close to as strong as its predecessor. While there were definitely some cool cards like Moonshaker Cavalry in the main set, there was almost no value for anything outside of Agatha's Soul Cauldron. And Agatha's Soul Cauldron is a good card, but not enough to justify cracking open boxes for that alone, which is where the Enchanting Tales subset came into play. A reprint similar to Strixhaven's Mythical Archives or Brothers War and their artifacts. It's basically some of the best enchantments from across Magic, stylized with both anime arts and regular sort of, I called them tapestry arts at the time. It was a very, very cool subset that you could pull some valuable stuff from, with Doubling Season and Rhystic Study being some of the more noteworthy ones, but unfortunately this resulted in the set being very top-heavy, in the sense that if you didn't pull one of the big, anime art variant cards, you really weren't getting your value back with the set. So while it did do a good thing to bring down the value of a lot of things, it definitely did not do enough to be a standalone set on its own that I could consider good. It wasn't a bad set, but it was the subset that kind of made it what it was. And we saw that with the collector box prices, starting out around $230 as they do, and dropping down to about $178, give or take. It's about a 22% drop in price, but there are still some chase cards, like I said, like the Rhystic Study Confetti Foil, among others. It just hasn't been that hotly demanded of a product going forward, and it'll be interesting to see what this looks like a year from now, and kind of whether or not it starts to rebound, or if people just continue to move on to the next shiny new object. Now, before the final set of the year, we got the Lord of the Rings Holiday Edition, which included some scene collections, but we're focusing primarily on the new collector boxes. Now, they did look different, and they were a little bit cheaper than the original Lord of the Rings boxes, obviously, I think due to the fact that the one-of-one ring was not in there, but that did not mean that these didn't have a lot to offer. One of my biggest concerns about this product is how much it actually costs, but the actual contents of the set are really cool and really unique in a way that I think is going to give it value over time. The biggest hit in these, of course, was the poster cards. Every single new Lord of the Rings card that was like even remotely noteworthy got a poster treatment. You can see the One Ring, probably the most desired, but I think Sauron the Dark Lord got one as well that was really cool. And these not only came in poster foils, they also came in serialized, so you could get numbered versions of these, or regular versions, which obviously has sort of become a recurring theme at this point, in addition to reprints of the Realms and Relics box toppers, which also came serialized, so cards like Caverns of Souls and, you know, Balanced Tomb, like we talked about earlier, you could get those numbered too. And we also got some new cards exclusive to this product, like Sylvan Tutor, which is a reprint, obviously, of a very old card that was a pretty good value, and it has some artwork from the Hildebrandt brothers. So this product actually has a lot going for it, I think, in terms of how it's going to age and the uniqueness behind it. Personally, I really like it more than the first Lord of the Rings release, but I understand some people may differ based on the art style. Either way, though, this started out around $345 and has dropped to about $284. All things considered. Now, in fairness, it's only been out for about 2 months, but it's seen a very small drop, only about 17%, which, accounting for, you know, normal adjustments when products hit the market in a, you know, large amount, isn't that bad. I do think this is going to be something that, like I said, over time will be looked at as a very good release, and I actually think the special edition is better than the original product. Especially with the possibility of hitting a lot of big reprint cards in that serialized version, but also just sort of a widespread appeal to, you know, Lord of the Rings fans in general. So for a specialty non-core set, this one is definitely my favorite of the year. It was not perfect, but it does have a lot to offer. If only it had just been a little bit lower in terms of its price point, I think it would have been an absolute home run product. Finally, we wrap out the year with the Lost Caverns of Exelon. Now, Exelon came out a couple years back and then had, of course, the Rivals of Exelon expansion as well, and were pretty well received with a lot of really cool cards and themes, dinosaurs, pirates, merfolk, and of course, Gishath came out in that set, and he was wildly popular. So people were pretty excited about the return to Exelon, but I have to be honest, this is the first set of the year, really, that kind of lived up to the hype that people had generated for it before the announcement. In addition to having a really cool subset of Jurassic Park cards as part of the Universes Beyond expansion, which I know not everybody loves. Some people hate it, some people love it. It is what it is. You're not going to convince everyone, but it certainly did a nice job to add to the value on the collector booster side of things. This set was just good in general. There were a ton of new cards that were good, like even for regular formats, like all of the new gods, including Ozurtok that triples the tokens. We had reprints of Growing Rights of Itlamok, as well as Gishath in the main set, amongst lots of other things, and Cavern of Souls became standard legal for the first time in years as a regular mythic in the set, which was just a great inclusion that kind of covered a lot of bases. But the biggest appeal for this set, of course, had to be Mana Crypt. Mana Crypt, one of the most expensive and generally best cards in Magic, period, got announced for a reprint in this set as part of a special guest slot, which was basically like an adjustment to the list, and people were pumped. Not only did they announce Mana Crypt, they announced it would have a bunch of different Neon Ink variants, similar to the Neon Ink from Kamigawa, as well as just a regular one that you could pull in set boosters and collector boosters, which was way less common, but still $175, give or take, for it, which is pretty damn good. This set has been ripped open like crazy. Box breaks online, people going to stores. I myself bought 3 boxes of it just because it felt like it was a really good value investment, and I think the market reflects that as well. The price of this was about $228 when it came out, and as of now is about $220, give or take, so it's looking at like a 3% drop, and that's nothing considering the general drops we see when the sets kind of get their initial release. This set as a whole was definitely a fitting end to the year and probably the best product overall that Wizards released. If more core sets were like this, I think there would be a lot more success for products in general, and I think you'd see a lot more people wanting to buy packs and open packs because there was a good balance of things to pull, great cards to chase, and something for whales and collectors alike, which is just, you know, healthy overall when things are affordable for the player base, but also appeal to whales because that means the product gets opened more, stores make more money, and single singles are cheaper, so it is a perfect trifecta. As a whole, Lost Caverns of Exelon definitely gets my pick for best set of the year. I would say a second follow-up there is probably the Lord of the Rings Holiday Edition. I think that set as a whole was just really good and had a lot going for it, but again, the price point wasn't great. And I think early on in the year, Phyrexia All Be One and March of the Machine definitely were pretty good too. But now I send it to you guys. What do you think was the best Magic release of 2023? Did you maybe feel differently about some of these? Did you buy any? And what were your experiences with them? Let me know in the comments down below. I'll catch you in the next video. Peace.